Government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem.
We can meet our destiny to build a land here that will be for all mankind a shining city on a hill.
You're listening to the Liberty Brothers Radio Show, only on Revolution Radio. Now, here are your hosts, Jim White and Jason Van Tatenhove.
The crusade for freedom is your chance and mine to fight communism.
Please hang up and try again.
Hi, Deborah. This is Rich Scheben.
Well, hey, Rich, yes.
Hey, you're on the air right now, so let me give you a proper introduction, please. And you are with myself and Jason Van Tatenhove. So, folks, I want to introduce Deborah Tavares. She's been on a plethora of radio shows all around the nation. She has several websites. I'm just going to mention three right now: stopthecrime.net, primarywater.org, and toxicsky.org. She has a 6 p.m. radio program on Rents, which I was lucky enough to be a guest on this past Friday. She's an excellent researcher, and she documents proof with examples and evidence for everything she says and backs everything up. Deborah, it's a real honor to have you on this show. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. Our main website, of course, is stopthecrime.net. And the archives for the Rinse radio shows that I would urge everybody to go and take a listen to are on the home page of our website under the Rinse radio show archives. We also have hot radio show topics. This correlates with many of the radio shows that we have done, and we post documents that we discuss during that week's programming time slot. So very important to look at the source documents. Again, everything that you're going to hear me talk about today is supported by documentation. Now, I'm going to be saying some things that are going to sound outrageous to some of you. They are outrageous, they're true, they're factual, and I think the sooner we can all gravitate towards our reality, the sooner we may be able to support one another emotionally as we are moved into greater degrees of takeover. Our country is being taken over.
Hey,
and
Deborah?
Yes.
May I just, I know you're only going to be here with us for an hour, so I just want to make sure that you mention, first of all, you put together an excellent documentary, Iron Mountain Report documentary, and you talk about how the elite is working for corporate structure with land and water grabs and planned repression of minorities, and you wanted to mention something about TIs. So I just wanted to throw that out there and make sure that you discuss those in your presentation, and please continue.
Well, thank you, Rich. Yes, I'll cover as much as I can. Understand this is a battle for the very survival of mankind as we have known it, and it is no less a battle than that. So I'm supposing the best news I could give will be now. We are being taught illegitimate, corrupt science around water, many things, but water. We're going to take that issue right now, and I'm going to urge all of you to take action. We have an action request. We have the website, primarywater.org, that Rich mentioned. And on that website, we have YouTubes that I would recommend everyone take a listen to, particularly Primary Water Explained, the YouTube Primary Water Explained. We've sadly only been taught about the secondary water source or cycle, which is rain and snowmelt, keeping in mind that every single drop of water on the surface of the earth has originally come from primary water, which is the process of hydrogen and oxygen forming into vapor, pushing up and out through the Earth's mantle and surfacing. This is also called new water as well. And what we discovered was this is where our cold and hot springs come from, the geysers that we see those beautiful cascading waterfalls coming down, the ever-flowing lava mountaintops in the Hawaiian Islands. That water never stops. That's primary water. We know many countries throughout the world that have tapped into primary water in order to populate areas, and those would include parts of Africa that has accessed primary water over the years, including Muammar Gaddafi. And this is a very interesting story. I would recommend that everyone, again, go to primarywater.org. We have much posted about Muammar Gaddafi. He discovered water while punching and drilling in the northern African desert and created what became known as the Great Man-Made River Project. It was the eighth wonder of the world before it was blown up by NATO in the United States, largely to bring down Libya, because that supplied 70% of the Libyan people with free water. Again, that's the Great Man-Made River Project, the eighth wonder of the world. You can watch it on YouTube actually being constructed. And what they also did, from an insider report that we have, is they blew up the water drilling equipment, stating that those were ground-based missiles. They blew up about 10 or so of these water drilling rigs so that they would not be able to reach the 1,500 to 2,000 depths that they were finding and bringing up endless quantity of water. Again, water is a renewable, and this is what we must understand and get this out far and wide. We're all being told here, certainly you've heard the news in California, by NASA telling us that we had a year's worth of water left. Well, now we've only got about 10 months. And they're shutting water availability off now to municipal water city dwellers. And they're attempting now to come on to private property well owners and tell them that every single drop of water you are using is not finding its way into the streams and creeks, and it is killing the salmons and the steelhead in our area. So they have contracts, and again, I want to underscore right now, do not sign any contracts. Do not sign any contracts. They are trickery to get you to consent, and we should not be consenting. If there's one thing that I leave the impression in this show is not to consent. We must not consent wherever possible. So do not sign any contracts. It's important to understand, while we have had a de facto corporate government structure that has not been serving us, we have been sadly under an extended annual state of national emergency, which has allowed all of the executive orders that we have been seeing, many wondering how can these executive orders be enforced, why is this occurring, why does Congress seem to not have any power? Well, because it doesn't. It's only window dressing. And for those of you that still might believe that we have some kind of representation, I would urge you to understand the reality of government as well, not only water, but government as well. I would recommend that you read Fruit from a Poisonous Tree by Melvin Stamper, Stamper. Also, you can do a free download on Who is Running America, and that is about the bankruptcy of America and the corporate United States and the New World Order, and how the Uniform Commercial Code replaced the United States Constitution. So for many of you, this is difficult to comprehend and imagine, but I think for also many of you, it's very clear. When we are having to fight against poisons in our food supply, GMO and other toxins, aspartame and the like, high fructose corn syrup, as well as Cinemix. Now, Rich, I don't know if the audience has heard about Cinemix, but you can type in SENOMYX, SENOMYX in the search bar of stopthecrime.net. It is human tissue that is being put into the food supply as a flavor enhancer. It's cannibalizing, and it's part of the satanic ritualization of the Illuminati or the elite. So for those of you would not want to be cannibalizing, I would certainly recommend you look at the flyer. Again, on stopthecrime.net, it has a list of those food products that has human tissue in it. And there was a lawsuit actually brought against the adding of fetal tissue in the food supply that was defeated because it was said to have been ordinary business.
Wow.
So again, SENOMYX. Many people have been passing these flyers out that you can, again, download from stopthecrime.net for free. Everything that you're going to hear me talk about is a free download from stopthecrime.net. However, for those of you that may not be able to download for whatever reason, there is a print shop, and for the cost of printing and shipping only, you can request any documents that you would like by calling area code 707-586-9558. Again, 707-586-9558. We want you to have this documentation. We want you to be able to go before your city council, which is incorporated and does not serve you. That's why you only have 3 minutes or less to talk. But to be able to hold up documents and solidly talk about the reality of our reality. And so the water is a very important issue. Again, please go to primarywater.org. Understand water is a renewable. It's perpetually created, just as petroleum always was. Petroleum was never a fossil fuel. It was never of limited resource, as Rockefeller created the illusion that it was for profits. This is all about creating new markets, creating the illusion of scarcity. Scarcity is a driver for genocide. Scarcity is a driver for increased costs for everything. Our food, every aspect of our lives is being created into scarcity.
Now, Deborah.
So, yes.
So, this is Jason. Thanks for coming back on the show.
Hi, Jason. Yes.
When you say that oil is not a fossil fuel, that and obviously this is one area that I have not researched all that much in, but that's a shocking statement to make, much like the water thing. Can you go into that a little bit more?
Well, absolutely, and I'll give people some resource information to also become more familiar. The idea of scarcity with petroleum was a Rockefeller idea, and he saw the opportunity to create limited resource ideas so there could be huge profits. And they would literally stop drilling in some of the drilling for the oil just to create the illusion that it had run dry when it hadn't. And there's an excellent YouTube. It's called The Origins of Oil. The Origins of Oil by Colonel Fletcher Prouty. And along with that are many references to the reality. They drill much, much deeper than fossils or plant material was ever found for petroleum, which is interesting in and of itself. They go beyond the depths of fossils. And so what is true is that petroleum never came from dead dinosaurs. But I remember as a kid, like you probably remember as a kid being taught in school, that it was a fossil fuel. And sadly, the school system has been in operation for the scam that has been perpetrated on us so that we would be where we are now in such an illusion, in such a virtual reality of misinformation and invented history and invented science. And that's where we are, and that is why. The deception has been very long, and we have been deceived on every single level. Another excellent book to read is The Great American Adventure, Secrets of America by retired Judge Dale. The Great American Adventure, Secrets of America by retired Judge Dale. We also have a YouTube, and I would highly recommend everyone watch this. It does talk, I do talk briefly in this YouTube about what you heard Rich say about the report from Iron Mountain and how that played in to our reality now. That YouTube is called Water Wars, Stealing Water for Profit and Power. Again, Water Wars, Stealing Water for Profit and Power. It's packed full of source documents, again, free downloads. It paints the picture of the intentional poisoning of the groundwater aquifers and how we are now being moved into the idea that we have to have water treatment plants throughout the United States and desalinization to get to clean water. Again, our water has been intentionally polluted. A recent story that we broke is the fact that PG&E has been caught alongside the Colorado River with a chromium plume. That's the same thing that happened in Hinckley, California, and hence the movie Erin Brockovich. But right now, PG&E has about a 150-acre area right alongside the Colorado River that has chromium, and the plume is expanded. They are going to try to mitigate this contaminant with another cancer-causing contaminant that they're putting in our gas, and that is ethanol. And ethanol is cancerous, and they're going to be injecting ethanol into this contaminant of chlorine, the contaminant along the river.
Excuse me, Deborah. I apologize to interrupt you because you have so much great information. Just so you know, this is going to be rebroadcasted. I've already talked to several people. This broadcast is going to be picked up by several people because of so much great information that you have. But can I have you back up just a few moments, please? When you were talking about that company who got caught contaminating our aquifers, could you go into a little more detail and specificity on how they got caught? Was it with video? Was it with pictures? What are the consequences? And before you answer that, I just have an article in front of me. Pharmaceutical giant GlaxoSmithKline accidentally, and this is in quotes, released live concentrated polio virus in the environment in Belgium. So this is happening around the world, and it's pretty scary. So go ahead and answer that last question, please.
Yes, it's part of the population reduction treaties that have been secretly agreed to by countries to hold down populations by adding toxins and poisons. That's an agreement. And what we're seeing is it being fulfilled. And it's been a process for many, many decades, and that's what we talk about in water wars, stealing water for profit and power, is the agreement and the understanding from the report from Iron Mountain to reduce the population on an annual basis so it would not be noticed. But what I was talking about earlier, Jason, was PG&E, that's Pacific Gas and Electric. They happen to be the utility company that services Northern California. PG&E, when you search it, and I've done research on this, and I have it up in YouTube, which you can find on our YouTube channel on StopTheCrime.net, but PG&E is run by Rothschild. And Rothschild also owns the water rights to the uphill stream flows of the waters that flow into Sonoma County and Marin County in Northern California. So PG&E has the plans in place to filter the chromium from the Colorado River, and they say it could take about 30 years to decontaminate. Now, this was an article that I stumbled into back on May 4th of 2015. Not many people are aware of this contamination site, and I hope that as a result of broadcasting this many times, more people will understand. But they have a plan. There's about 150 acres of groundwater contamination caused by the chemicals used by Pacific Gas and Electric. And this has been ongoing for a number of decades. And they're looking at another similar situation, as I said, in Hinckley, California, with PG&E, which became the Erin Brockovich story. But they're going to be injecting large amounts of ethanol into the groundwater to attempt to control the plume. So they're using a known carcinogen, which is ethanol, to contain an already toxic spill and try to attempt to contain the chromium. And by doing this for 30 years, they will be contaminating the Colorado River. And again, this is another way in which to poison the people unknowingly. This is what is happening. And PG&E also, for all of you that are listening, has a weather modification program where they have had permits pulled for decades, wherein they have been able to inject various chemicals from ground-based rockets to cause added rainfall. And PG&E, again, is Rothschild. Rothschild owns a greater share in Weather Central. And Rothschild controls a bulk of the utilities across the United States. PG&E, Pacific Gas and Electric, again, our Northern California utility company, along with Edison International, which is known as Southern California Edison in Southern California. When you search Edison International, you also find the Rothschild connection. The purpose, of course, is to control all resources, and PG&E was at the 1992 Rio de Janeiro Earth Summit and has been set up as the template and the role model for the other utility companies across the United States. And more recently, of course, for those of you that are aware of smart metering. Smart meters are very dangerous, bringing frequencies into our homes. It's massive surveillance. What it is they're basing all of this, as both of you know, on the idea and false science that we need to reduce our CO2 emissions. So I think, as all of us can imagine, when we base policies that your cities are voting and approving on false science, it gets more corrupt and more dangerous for all of us from that point. And that's where we are now. It is a ruthless, monolithic conspiracy, as JFK told us. And it is ruthless. And in the corporate charters that are indeed running America, we're USA Inc., there is no reference to life. There is no concern for moral ethics or life itself. And we can see that. We can see that escalating every day once we start to become aware of the degree of assaults upon all of us. And so just another sidebar is that we've been trying to get this information out, that the EPA has new gas coming out that has increased ethanol in it, and it will cause car damage to cars 2012 or older. This is another way in which they're reducing mobility. They want us into what they call these smart towns, which are prison zones. These are what we call human settlement zones. And to that note, I'll simply add right now, for many of you that are aware of the assault upon the farmers and ranchers in the San Joaquin Valley in Central California, you know that many wells have been pumped dry and that many of the farmers and ranchers are not being allocated any water out of the California reservoir, the aqueduct, either by the state agencies or federal. The only water that these farmers are able to utilize is well water, pumping water. So they're drilling deeper, they're trying to maintain their properties and to grow the agriculture necessary to pay their mortgages. But sadly, many farmers and ranchers are losing their farms and ranches, and they're walking away in many instances willingly because they're unaware that they have primary water. So again, the call to
Deborah,
action.
may I ask you a question, please? This is Rich.
Rich.
Is there technology, Deborah, that well drillers have, or some type of I don't know, mapping that may be done where people in different regions around the country, especially in California, can know how deep they have to drill in order to hit primary water to prove to the naysayers and the conspiracy theorists that this is really a true fact?
Well, there is technology where they can locate water. We are the water planet. All of the land masses are literally floating on water. It just depends in some instances how deep you have to go. That's why I would really recommend everybody watch Primary Water Explained, the YouTube, because I am interviewing a primary water expert that has drilled wells all over the world. And with an illustration, we are going over what that looks like. And I felt that that was an extremely valuable way in which to answer the question that you've asked me. So again, Primary Water Explained is necessary for everyone that's listening to understand water is a renewable. And what we find here in Northern California is the attempt to set up surveillance by the California Fish and Game on rural properties that have wells. They want to account for every drop of water that is being used. And before I jump into a definition that I really want to cover, I want to just say that we discovered in the San Joaquin Valley, where they're moving farmers and ranchers off their land, that they're planning on building a new state-of-the-art 21st century city. It's called Quay Valley, Q-U-A-Y Valley, Quay Valley. And I have that posted on stopthecrime.net under Hot Radio Show Topics. I did quite a bit of research and pulled up the aspects that they plan to build into that city, because what happened is there was a high-speed rail plan that was proposed in the Central California area for a long while. And people kept laughing and saying, this is a high-speed rail road to nowhere. Well, it was never to nowhere. They were planning this city. And this high-speed rail plan is about 200 miles north. Well, I should say the city is 200 miles north of Los Angeles and 200 miles south of San Francisco. And the high-speed rail plan was just approved in January of 2015. And we're talking about a $68 billion high-speed rail that will take people back and forth from San Francisco to Los Angeles in 3 hours at speeds of over 200 miles an hour. And of course, we know that when they estimate a build-out at $68 billion, we know that it's going to top that many more millions for sure. But Quay Valley, the city, is an interesting city in and of itself. It's going to be self-contained, where they're going to be discouraging any vehicles at all. There's going to be a reusable water system so that it is sewer to tap. Highly toxic. It's an endocrine disruptor. There is absolutely no way that water treatment systems can filter out all of the toxins. We are going to be further dumbed down and poisoned by the water treatment systems that you're hearing about now. It's coming online everywhere. Treat and reuse your sewer water.
Deborah,
And,
may I interrupt you one more time, please? Because I know your time is short. You're only here for another 15 minutes with us.
Well, I could stay a little longer if you so desired.
Oh, I would love it, because I can listen to you all day. There's a lot of information besides people like you unveiling the propaganda behind the so-called scarcity of water, and the CDC and EPA whistleblower David Lewis publishing books like Science for Sale. There's a lot of people coming out with this information. And besides primary water, why aren't the coastal cities like Middle Eastern countries like Israel creating desalination plants? Could you address that, please?
Well, Israel, in fact, one of the documents that people can download, it's under the See More, under the YouTube, Water Wars, Stealing Water for Profit and Power. We found out of Israel, and it is the plan to privatize the global water supply. Israel, of course, is Rothschild, and so naturally they would be advocating the markets that they want to bring in. And Israel has access to primary water. That is one of the reasons they were able to populate to the extent that they were. They are accessing and have accessed primary water for some time. And everyone knew that Muammar Gaddafi accessed it. And again, it's been accessed all over the world. Sadly, people don't recognize it for what it is. But what we benefit by being able to access a water that has never been environmentally poisoned in the atmosphere is, again, the new water. And there's a book on primarywater.org that I would recommend everyone download. It was never meant to get out. It was written in the late 50s, released in the early 60s, called New Water for a Thirsty World. And the foreword was written by Aldous Huxley. And I would recommend, again, everyone download this book, keep it in your library. Our website is literally hit many times, and we're having difficulty keeping some of the documents up. So I would download that and put that in your library, read it. Certainly inform your children. They're being trained literally to be so fearful that they literally concede to all of the tyrannical takedown plans and policies that this de facto corporate government system is wheeling out. And when we recently, well, not recently, but a year or so ago, we listened to Al Gore talk as he was bringing forth his new book. And he said, we're beyond USA Inc. We're now Earth Inc. We are controlled by major dominant corporations. So when you see Israel coming out and promoting the idea of desalination, it's because they're creating new markets. That is what is happening. Everything is being changed. We know that the United Nations, for example, has told us, we know that the United Nations is saying that, and this is Christina Figueres, she said, for the first time, the world economy is being transformed intentionally. In other words, it's planned obsolescence on our current reality. We are being redefined, not only as humans by the changing of our genes, but the changing of everything. This is a quote from the United Nations. This is probably the most difficult task we have ever given ourselves, which is to intentionally transform the economic development model for the first time in human history. This is the first time in the history of mankind that we are setting ourselves the task of intentionally, within a defined period of time, to change the economic development model that has been reigning for the last 150 years since the Industrial Revolution. This will not happen overnight, and it will not happen at a single conference on climate change. It just does not occur like that. It is a process because of the depth of the transformation. So what we're all witnessing and able to see now, and all of you, I encourage you, we have another YouTube up. It's entitled, Who is Running America and the Climate Action Plans? Who is running America and the Climate Action Plans? It was an emergency town hall meeting conference that I did here in Northern California. As Northern California, all of you are going to be facing the same things. You may not recognize it at first, but I can tell you, these are all by executive order. This is a global assault on the human family, a global. So don't think just because you haven't heard this yet in your city that somehow or another you might be skipped over. Just as many people thought when we were trying to create the awareness around the smart meter deployment, which is through the Department of Energy. Many other states were slow at listening to the warnings coming out of California from all of the activists that were sounding the alarms. Well, now as that information has gone out, and many other states have realized they're getting smart meters, like it or not, we're starting to see that what you hear being said right now from me in Northern California is headed to you. So the advantage of hearing this information, if you have not yet, is to start researching it for yourselves, creating networks in your communities of getting this information out to bolster up the awareness, because what we face in the increasing moment-by-moment basis of the changes that are taking effect are monstrous. And I believe wholeheartedly that the best thing we can all do is educate ourselves as best possible, go through the pain and the sadness and the sense of treason that many people feel as they recognize reality. Get through it, because there's empowerment on the other side. And you'll be a better supportive neighbor in your community with the ability to understand. There will be less emotional distress because they're banking on emotional distress. And I would like to just go back to a few executive orders. I want to remind everybody that we are in a de facto corporate government structure, and these executive orders that I'll read very quickly are real, and this is what we see rolling over all of us, and it is happening at an increased speed. For example, Executive Order 10990 allows the government to take over all modes of transportation and control of highways and seaports. Executive Order 10998 allows the government to seize all means of transportation, including personal cars, trucks, or vehicles of any kind, and total control over all highways, seaports, and waterways. We're talking water. They're taking over water. This is what we see here. Executive Order 10999 allows the government to take over all food resources, including water and farms. We see that happening now. Executive Order 11000 allows the government to mobilize civilians into work brigades under government supervision. Executive Order 11001 allows the government to take over all health, education, and welfare functions. Executive Order 11004 allows the Housing and Finance Authority to relocate communities, build new housing with public funds, and designate areas to be abandoned, and establish new locations for populations. That's happening now. Now, what is important to know, one of the water rules that came down here in California, and you will face this too, but this was published in the USA Today as one of the recent water rules that California voted on. And this was the following. Not only are they talking about the fact that California needs to remove 50 million square feet of lawn. I want you to think about that. Greenery and plant material gives us our oxygen, and they're already poisoning the trees and degrading our soil with the overhead geoengineering on a daily basis, spraying poisons and toxins on us everywhere globally. This is an ongoing program. So we're already being poisoned from that. But then we look at reducing our oxygen by being required to reduce greenery. And here in Northern California, they want us in the rural areas to eliminate all lawns. They even have rebate programs where they will give different amounts for different areas. But here it's $1 a square foot up to $1,000. You can take out your lawn and plant other types of plant material that's more indigenous to the area. But I want you to listen to this new rule. California will be directing state departments to provide temporary relocation assistance to families who need to move from homes where domestic wells have run dry to housing with running water. This is a massive theft of land under the illusion of water scarcity when we have primary water, and water is a renewable. This is most important for everyone to hear and get this information out far and wide. Spend some time on primarywater.org. It was about 5 or plus years ago that the Club of Rome decided they could centralize global control more rapidly if they seized the global water resources. And that is what is happening now.
Deborah, may I interject a quick question, please? This is Rich again.
Certainly.
Is it possible, regarding the idea and solution category, because when I first listened to your documentary, Iron Mountain Report documentary, I was overwhelmed. And the information that you know so much, and the fact that you have documents to back this up, I bet everybody listening to this is dropping their jaws right now. So that being said, regarding ideas and solutions, why aren't the landowners getting well drillers together to drill into the primary water aquifers to give proof that this actually is real? Because, you know, the powers that be are just making the populace tout things like conspiracy theory and all this other stuff, even if they look at proof. So I want you to address the well drillers accessing the aquifers of primary water, and I want you to give the people who are listening, Deborah, a little homework for people who never heard about primary water, never heard about geoengineering, didn't believe it's true. I want you to give them 1 or 2 websites, 1 or 2 documentaries. Just make it real simple and short of what the people at home listening can watch and listen to get some information that gets them to second base, please.
Well, absolutely. Again, this goes back to our call to action for everyone to go to primarywater.org. Spend some time there. Listen to the YouTube Primary Water Explained. Also, the YouTube Water Crisis Hoax. Then you'll spend time there, and you'll see the various locations all over the world, because we link to primarywaterinstitute.org. They are primary water experts that have drilled all over the world. You can see maps on that website that show you the primary water wells that have already been accessed, and in California and elsewhere. So what we must do is spend some time in educating ourselves to know that this is real. There's also a very interesting geyser that they call Fly Geyser.
Deborah, the music's coming on. I'm going to have you hold that thought till after the break. Folks, we'll be back. We're here with the Liberty Brothers radio show. Jason and guest host Rich Scheben. We've got Deborah Tavares on the line as well. Stick with us. We'll be back on the other side of the break with this just mind-blowing information. All right, and welcome back to the Liberty Brothers radio show. We're coming to you live out of the great state of Montana. I'm joined today, I'm, of course, your host, Jason Van Taten. I'm joined with guest host Rich Scheben, author of Off the Grid and On Target, One Man's Response to Political... I'm sorry, that's not... I believe that's the name of your blog, but the author of Living Off-Grid in Montana, which is one man's journey to off-grid living in Montana. We're also joined by guest Deborah Tavares of... She's got primarywater.org, just so many different websites and just incredible information. Just information that at first, it's hard to wrap your head around. But again, check out the websites, look at the links, and go do the research, because the documentation is there, folks, and this is information we've got to get out there and start talking about. We know that so much of what's we're being shown, and this roller coaster of a ride we've been on for the last year or so is definitely being engineered, and not with good things at the end there. So we were talking about the primary water before the break, so I'm going to let you finish up with that, and then we're going to just keep talking, just keep going. So, Deborah, please, you've got the floor.
Well, thank you very much. I wanted to, just before the break, I had mentioned Fly Geyser. That's F-L-Y Geyser. That is a geyser that's in Nevada. It's located on private property. And about 100 years ago, they were drilling for a well, and they hit water that came up at about 200 degrees, too hot for what they were going after. So they capped that well off, and they drilled elsewhere. Eventually, the well cap became dislodged, as I understand the story. And what you will see is this amazing, continuous water that comes out constantly. It's a hot spring, and again, it's on private land, Fly Geyser. Take a look at that. You can see it on primarywater.org. You can also just type it in your search engine. It's beautiful. And it's, again, an expression of the continual creation of water beneath the mantle of the earth. In fact, what we now know as well as the water turns into vapor from the hydrogen and oxygen process, it must surface, and it will surface. It'll either forcibly surface by creating such pressure that we'll have seismic disruption, and or as a result of an earthquake, as we had a 6.0 in August of 2014 in Napa in Northern California. We were in the height of the drought, very dry, had not rained, and suddenly after that quake, some of the small streams and creeks started to flow continuously with water. The water departments did not know where that water was coming from. They were assuming that because of the geological movement, that some of the aquifers, the groundwater aquifers, had released, and they had determined that this would be short-lived, that the flowing of water would cease. It did not. Again, this is an expression of primary water. It has been said by primary water experts that if we were to release this primary water, we would reduce the seismic activity. We would not have the types of massive earthquake disruptions that we could potentially have just by releasing this stress from under the mantle. We would also not be seeing the saltwater intrusion along the coastlines. Many farmers and ranchers here in California are losing their ranches because of the high salinity concentration in their soil. What has happened is, of course, their aquifers have been pumped down, and they have not been recharged. If we were not pumping as rapidly as we were, aquifers in many areas would likely recharge on their own. But we could have, many years ago, as the primary water experts told us, here in California, they did not recommend that we were to have built the California aqueduct. In fact, many of you may have seen the movie Chinatown. It's all about the corruption behind water in Los Angeles, the movie Chinatown. But it was recommended that California move their water by a series of primary water wells. But that was scrapped because they could not charge as much money, and there would not be as many corporate structures set to make the kind of money on the aqueduct system that California currently has. And again, I remind everybody, the way in which water is being contained and delivered to our homes is the highly toxic and poisonous atmospheric water. Certainly it's bringing down bomb testing, Fukushima, the toxins from the chemtrails. Then we have the water runoff of all of the fertilizers and other treatment aspects from the chemtrails, the horrible soil degradation. All of this collects into our reservoirs, fed into our homes, pumped with fluoride, chlorine, and other aspects of poisons. And I want to add this at this moment because this is something that we recently discovered. We discovered that, of course, many of you know how corrosive these chemicals are when they go through our plumbing in our homes. Well, there is a massive problem now with copper plumbing water lines springing pinhole leaks. This is causing a tremendous amount of repair costs for property owners and certainly a tremendous amount of chaos in the lives of people that live in the homes when they spring a leak, because sometimes it's not something that's quickly noticed until the water has seeped in between walls. If it's on the second floor, there can be mold and fungus issues. A tremendous amount of cost has now gone in to a new market that was intentionally created because they knew that they were adding heavy corrosive chemicals to the water supply. This was set up by Rothschild. We discovered it on a Rothschild website called plainsight.com, Plain site, SIGHT.com. This is posted on Hot Radio Show Topics on StopTheCrime.net. We discovered there is a national firm called American Leak Detection that is being advanced across the nation. It's a franchise. And this is where you hear and see now water restoration, leak detection. This is hiding the eventuality of being able to monitor every single drop of water with the idea of chasing leaks, but making tremendous profits off of depleting people's savings while they chase leaks and repair the damage in their homes, office buildings, etc.
Excuse me, so, Deborah, yeah. May I ask a quick question, please?
Certainly.
Yeah, when you mentioned the Omar Gaddafi story in Libya and how he was drilling for oil and then struck primary water and created a river, my question to you is, regarding well drilling anywhere in the nation, how does a person know when they've just hit kind of below surface water in an ordinary aquifer, or they've hit primary water? Are we going to have the technology that people know and well drillers know when they've hit primary water versus a small aquifer above that? Would you answer that, please?
We have the technology. It's being kept from us, as primary water has been kept from us. Other areas all over the world are drilling and accessing primary water, and there is testing that can confirm that it is new water. It doesn't have tritium in it and other aspects of poisons and toxins. Again, going to primarywater.org, there is information that everybody that is listening can read. And when you go to primarywaterinstitute.org, you'll see an entire section devoted to the evidence and how they prove it's primary water. I would recommend, because right now the United States is being massively privatized by the corporate structure, to privatize all of our public community water supplies. And in the documents that we found out of Israel, which is called, it's written by Goldman Sachs, which is Rothschild, and it's taking a deep dive into water. In that document, they identify the corporations, many of which have been intentionally set up to assist in the privatization of the water supply in the United States. It is heartbreaking. The other document that, again, these are free downloads under the YouTube, Water Wars, Stealing Water for Profit and Power. Click on the See More, and you'll see these two documents. We tried to make it easy for people to find them. The other document is entitled A Water Market USA, and it's by Global Water Intelligence. And they go through the enormous profits that are planned to be made from water treatment and desalination. They also talk about the problems in privatizing the water in the United States, because we have a patchwork of different water agencies throughout the country that has prevented us from being further assaulted thus far with privatization. But they have figured out ways around that. It has been intentionally allowed by the utilities to not keep up with infrastructure. We see that in everything in the country. Our roads, our gas lines, all the infrastructure was intentionally let go for the moment that there would become a crisis, as there is now. And there would be the need for tremendous monies to be reinvested rather than stolen. And then the EPA is on the spearhead of this privatization. The EPA is a corporation. It is being run by the international controllers. And it is responsible for much of the calamity that is happening in our country right now, as well as many other corporate agencies. We have a list in that YouTube, Stealing Water for Profit and Power, Water Wars, Stealing Water for Profit and Power, of the corporate agencies within the United States that have been put in place to shred America, steal the resources. This is very similar for those of you that may have watched Apologies of an Economic Hitman. If you have not watched that YouTube, Apologies of an Economic Hitman, I would strongly urge that you do. It is how the CIA was set up to go into other countries and create coups and assassinate those leaders that were not going to submit to the corporate takedown. Again, Apologies of an Economic Hitman. It's a full documentary, and it's by John Perkins, and he was a prominent member of the top secret team of economic hitmen who used fraudulent financial reports, rigged elections, and payoffs, extortion, sex, military coups, and murder to create the global American empire after World War II. And after a long struggle between his guilt and the fear of telling the truth, he meets with the daughter of an assassinated president and speaks out in front of an angry Latin American audience. And this is a extremely important understanding, because right now in the United States we have this system occurring here. And what that looks like is every single city, every single agency, our school boards, it's all a corporation. They're all our health departments are incorporated. Our cities are incorporated. Our counties are incorporated. And when you recognize that they are working under an agenda which requires grants, that they are filling out grant applications and taking the money and moving forward with agendas that are all many tied to the illusion to reduce our CO2 emissions, we are being subverted right now into a new virtual reality. It's being invented. We are going to soon start trading in air. Many of you have heard that, the cap and trade. And what we discovered recently here as well, here in Northern California, this is horrific, it all is, but we discovered the plans to burn up Northern California. And I'm going to go into that a little bit, because these are similar plans that are being orchestrated globally and in your areas as well. So when you hear me talk about California, I don't want you to think about this as being a California problem. No, it's all of your problems. All of the reports that we have include taking over control of all resources globally. And the United States is in the crosshairs of the biggest lie of global warming and climate change. It's most important fundamentally for everyone to understand. Climate change has been the capability of controlling the weather. Now, I did a recent program on climate change, and I referred to a document that we found out of Johns Hopkins University and Phillips lab. And it's an old document. It's not even new. So for those of you that are on the fence about the intensity of ability to control the weather, you really need to understand that reality, because we are going to be chased around the globe by intentional weather events that are going to cause shock in cities. It's going to be a method in which large populations are relocated, and I'm going to get into that here in a moment. But this document that we found, again, it was dated March of 1997. It was delivered as a PowerPoint entitled Weather Modification, Testing Technology Symposium of 1997, again, Advanced Weapon Instrumentation Technologies, out of Johns Hopkins University. This was delivered by a Dr. Arnold Barnes, Jr., who is the senior scientist out of Phillips Laboratory. Now, again, this was delivered in 1997, and it's important to understand that since 1997, and the fact that this technology is well over 20 years old, this weather modification and control is accomplished by ground-level, horizontal hidden antennas and or large space platforms that are nuclear-powered. So we have an advanced weapons system in place now. But this is back in 1997, and this is horrific. And I'll just read a couple of things in this document. They talk about the treaty issues on page 3, and they say the UN Convention on the Prohibition of Military or any other hostile use of environmental modification, which went into effect October 5th of 1978, applies only to widespread, long-lasting, or severe environmental modifications. In other words, there was a UN treaty back in 78 that prohibited the continued use of widespread and long-lasting environmental modifications. They go on to say that local, non-permanent changes, such as precipitation, in other words, creating rain enhancement, and hail, and fog and cloud dispersal, are permitted under the UN Treaty of 1978. They go on page 4 to talk about the weather modification capabilities back then. Degrade enemy forces, create precipitation enhancement, flood the lines of communication, and reduce reconnaissance effectiveness, decrease comfort level, and also decrease morale. Storm enhancement, which would deny operations. Now, we're talking about operations here right now in the United States and globally. Look at what is happening to Texas right now. This is weather weapons. This is war. Precipitation denial. We're seeing that now here in California. They told us then, inducing a drought, denying fresh water. Space weather. Disable and destroy space assets. Fog and cloud removal, or fog and clouds being used as concealment. They could do either. Now we have to think about that. There's huge profits in causing fog, and insurance companies make a tremendous amount of money in impairment of vision on our highways. And sadly, this is another method of market increase and revenue increase. They go on to talk about how fog and cloud generation would increase concealment of the enemy or of friendly forces. So we have to ask ourselves, to what degree is the ability to enhance weather, create weather, also being worked into Jade Helm? Because we know that that is only one aspect of the assault upon the American people, is Jade Helm. And as we go through this document, again, I'm still talking about the 1997 document, old technology. This is old. They talk about creating chaos using the butterfly effect and that this would be unpredictable. What this means is the butterfly effect. It grants the power to cause a hurricane. They can cause hurricanes and tornadoes, and they have. They can lace.
Go ahead, finish up your thought. I wanted to ask you a question on kind of what the end game of this is going to look like, because it sure seems like we've got a lot of stuff hitting all at once, and that things are ramping up. There's a lot of chatter, just from my sources and a lot of the other people I've talked to, talking about how there may be some things happening this fall which could fundamentally change life for us Americans here. Do you think this is all ramping up fairly quickly here, or do you think that we're going to see some endgame maneuvers happening soon?
I think what we think now as endgame maneuvers, we can't possibly even comprehend as endgame. I think absolutely the reality is bearing its greater ability for us to see it. Do I think that we still comprehend the reality and the broader aspects of what we really face? I don't. The whole does not stop. Our research continues to plummet every single day. We discover more aspects of this genocide and enslavement. Again, the very reality of the existence and continuation of humanity is what we're really talking about. And what we're really talking about is a transformation of what we've always known as human. Now, I have a link on my website. I recommend people go there only after they've gone through the good news of understanding water as a renewable, because we have to, of course, understand our reality at different times as we educate ourselves. The link I would recommend on stopthecrime.net for those is called No More Humans. We are being reconfigured. It's, as many people call it, the transhumanism agenda. There's an evolution going on that is changing what humanity has been. And that's what we're seeing. What we're seeing is a kill-off of the species, of the human race, and all living things on the earth. We know that large areas of the ocean are dead. We now are seeing the trees dying. They're spraying over us every day, and still people can look up and see all the spraying, all of the chemtrails, and not even recognize what they're seeing. We're in a virtual reality where we're being programmed by major media outlets into believing what the spin is and not recognizing reality for ourselves. I know that everyone listening understands innately that things are very, very wrong. We all have to be willing to take the steps to understand, because what I think in answering that question, it's a huge question. I don't put dates on anything. I go day to day and I look at what I see occurring and what the documents are revealing, and I look at the end goals of those that have the power, the control, and they want to live forever. They're looking for life extension. And we know that there are underground cities that have been built. We know that. We know that the plans for their continued life is already well advanced to protect themselves. People ask all the time, well, how could they be doing all of this to us, and how could they survive? Well, certainly they're not wielding out poisons and toxins that they themselves aren't already prepared to deal with physically. And as far as the mutating of genes, this is what they want. So they're experimenting and beyond experimentation on all of us. In fact, I have a document on our website that was given to us by Dr. Preston James, who has connections to insiders. And you can type in the search bar of stopthecrime.net the Aquarius Operations Briefing. And it's a 50-page document. The end page are photographs of cell phone towers and antennas. What this document is about is the planned chemical sedation of the population, followed up by radio microwave frequencies for mass mind control. So in the short term, in order to gain control of all of us, they're doing that by usurping our ability to think. It's a psychotronic weapons warfare that we're in, a silent weapons system. We're well advanced into World War III. People keep saying, well, if World War III starts. No, World War III has been underway. There's another documentary that I would recommend everyone watch to understand a bit of history about World War II. And it's important to watch this because many expect that this is similar to what we're going to see here in the United States. And it's called Hellstorm, Hell Storm, Storm. Type it in YouTube as one word, Hellstorm, and watch it. I advise viewer discretion. It is very raw, but very real. The only thing that people have mentioned that could be corrected in this documentary is that Hitler was not found dead from suicide there in Germany. He actually relocated to South America and also was in the United States. So just keep that in mind as you watch that documentary.
We've actually got a video up with the author of that research. If you guys want to learn more about what really happened with Hitler in Argentina and the death there, you can find it on our website, The Liberty Brothers.
But what I really want to jump into right now is I was talking about mind control and psychotronic weapons being used.
And targeted individuals, right? That's what it ties into.
And that's all part of that. And I want to get into that because this is expanding into more and more of the population. In fact, there was a recent agenda. It was an agendized item out of Richmond, California, a week ago, where they were able to prevail upon a city council member to agendize and adopt a resolution in support of the Space Preservation Act and the Space Preservation Treaty to permanently ban space-based weapons. And this was adopted in Richmond, California. Now let's talk about what that means. Well, they talk about targeted individuals and how these space-based weapons and ground-based weapons are being used to assault, attack, torture, maim, and cause such loss of ability that within these targets they cannot even work. Their employment is devastated. Usually they lose their homes. Often they end up living in their cars. Many of them are also targeted with synthetic telepathy. It's voice to skull, the ability to communicate in your mind. In fact, Carol Rosin, who was working with von Braun, delivered a speech. She was talking about, he was in the hospital dying of cancer, and he asked her to deliver a speech on his behalf. It was to a large audience of about 5,000. She had no idea how to discuss or explain the technologies that Braun knew about. And he was able to telepathically communicate to her, and she delivered his speech. And I believe that was back in the 70s. So the capability of having conversations from a distance to someone in their mind has been long ago been an opportunity. And we're very far behind in understanding what the technologies were. In fact, many of you may know Jose Delgado was able to get into a bull ring with a bull and operate this bull by wires in his brain. In fact, you can even look at a YouTube by a doctor called Wires in the Brain. Unbelievable technologies have been advanced upon us, and we have not been aware. And we are the enemy. We are clearly the enemy. When you look at Senate Report 93549, Senate Report 93549, you realize that since 1933 and since the bankruptcy of the United States and in 1913, of course, the takeover of our monetary system and the insertion of a corporate structure by the international bankers called the Federal Reserve, which none of us were really taught in school what all of that meant. We have been and are the enemy, and we are being eliminated. I've had on my website for quite some time a PowerPoint that was delivered just a couple of months before 9/11 by Dennis Bushnell, who is one of the lead scientists out of Langley in NASA scientist. And I would recommend that everyone listening take a look at that document. You'll understand the kinds of weapons that are being deployed globally. It is mind-boggling. And I would recommend, again, you take a look at, we call it the NASA War Plan on stopthecrime.net. But I want to get into targeted individuals because this is increasing, and you may know many people in your neighborhood that you think are crazy, and they're not. And we've got to get a hold of this kind of assault upon us and understand. First, there was a Dr. Lynn Segala who has gone missing. She discovered bioelectromagnetic radiation and the dangers, and she joined with other colleagues in devoting the rest of her career to warning the public about the carcinogenic and mutagenic effects of radiation to which the public was secretly and purposefully exposed by corporate criminals and corrupt paid public officials for the purposes of covert warfare for corporate profits. Now, this is an article that she wrote back in March of 2005, and it has been about that length of time that she has been missing. She's either in hiding or she has been killed. No one seems to really know. But what she was warning about in her research and other research was about the fact that electromagnetic radiation and frequencies have increased incidence of autism. She was talking about that. We know we have a massive increase of autism that has been environmentally created. There's massive profits in various aspects of funding groups of disadvantaged populations. Massive profits are made. She talked about the fact that cell phone towers and portable telephones and transmitting pagers, including the electro fields of automobile-generated electric fields, there's no known safe level of radio frequency radiation exposure. She goes on to say, RF radiation causes tissue damage with a single exposure. 1990 EPA study reviewed the scientific literature and found radio frequency radiation to be...
Hey, Deborah, sorry about that. Skype completely crashed, which
Okay.
I don't believe in coincidence anymore. I got to say, it seems to be...
Well, at what point was my discussion of this electromagnetic frequency cut off?
You were talking about the gal that we weren't sure if she was in hiding or murdering her work. And
right.
Yeah.
And the understanding of microwave radiation frequencies, and that everybody that has even an exposure has tissue damage. It's 100% going to cause problems. We're talking about smart meters, baby monitors, all wireless devices. They are weapons. I interviewed Barry Trower, who is a foremost microwave weapons expert globally, and that's up on YouTube, called Cooking of Humanity, Cooking of Humanity. For those of you that would like to know more about the effects of this microwave frequency on all of our bodies. Some people will feel those effects sooner than others, and when they express the sensations that they're feeling, sadly, because of lack of education, many people just look at them and roll their eyes and call them tinfoil hats or hypochondriacs, or even worse, many of these people are ending up in mental hospitals because of the effects of the frequencies. It is devastating. But in this report that I was talking about, the Navy reported that in order to prevent deep tissue burning, the radio frequency radiation exposures should not take place when an exposed individual is wearing or carrying any metal objects, such as hairpins in the hair, metal implants, buckles or coins, or metal eye-frame glasses, etc., because this concentrates the fields and causes excessive burning. And again, when considering tissue burning, the researchers pointed out that radiation can be absorbed deeply and is actually greater in tissues such as muscle or brain tissue. So I'm going to leap into the targeted individuals. I have entire links and radio shows where I am interviewing TIs, as they call themselves. We're all either a victim or we are perpetrators. I want all of you to keep this in mind. We're either a victim or we are a perpetrator. Now, that does not mean that you are knowingly a perpetrator, but we have many minions that are working in and for compartmentalized corporate government agencies that are perpetrating crimes on people. And what we also now know is via various kinds of injections, including dental work, very likely the increased push for vaccinations, they're able to inject biomedical implants into our bodies. These become trackable. These are also creating two-way receivers, transmitters. They're actually turning people into cell phones. Now, I know this sounds crazy because I thought it was crazy too. But they're even beyond that technology. Because certainly in the chemtrails we know that there's nanotechnology and sensors, and you'll read that in the NASA War Plan about the use of sensors in everything, used as an aerosol, and that's important to understand. What this information will do is it will allow you to make different decisions. You certainly will not be living the life that you are now, in the sense that you will be spending your time differently, most likely, and fortifying your family unit is essential, because certainly we know in the document, NWO exposed by an insider, 1969, again, NWO exposed by an insider, 1969. I would recommend each and every single one of you download that from our resource tab on stopthecrime.net. It exposes the intentions of what was planned by the Illuminati, the rich men of the earth. And certainly Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars is another document I would recommend everyone read. It's only 44 pages. Again, Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. It's even up on YouTube where a gentleman is reading it to you. So if you want to multitask, you can even listen to Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars being read to you on YouTube. But I want to quickly jump in to microchip implants, mind control, and cybernetics in the short amount of time that we have left. I knew Dr. Ronnie Kildi, Kildi, who was the former chief medical officer in Finland. And she has been a pioneer in getting out the information of targeted individuals. So I'm just going to go over a document that she wrote that I think really says it best. It was the first brain implants were surgically inserted in 1974 in the state of Ohio, USA, and also in Stockholm, Sweden. These were brain electrodes, and they were inserted into the skulls of babies in 1946 without the knowledge of their parents. And of course, then in the 50s and 60s, electrical implants were inserted into the brains of animals and humans, especially in the United States, during research into behavior modification. The brain and body functioning and mind control methods were used in attempts to change human behavior and attitudes. Influencing the brain functions became an important goal of military and intelligence services. And then 30 years ago, brain implants showed up on x-rays the size of 1 centimeter. And subsequent implants shrunk in size to the grain of a rice. In fact, we recently visited a fish hatchery here on the Russian River, which runs along Bohemian Grove here in Sonoma County in Northern California. And they're implanting RFID chips in the new hatched fingerling coho salmon. And I asked them, how are they tracking the fish? They have sensors on either side of our rivers now to track the fish. Now, I want you to think about that. We're the enemy. We're at war. We're being tracked and monitored and surveilled. They want to know everything about us. They want to collect data on you. Every time you turn around, there's a survey or a petition. We would highly recommend you do not participate in feeding your information or anyone else's information into the algorithms of artificial intelligence to control us. We would recommend that you withdraw and stop feeding information. To that end, when we asked how are they tracking the salmon, again, we found out that they have receivers on either side of the rivers, keeping in mind that waterway escapes were one of a very prevalent escape method and routes out of European countries during World War II. In fact, many prisoners held in prisons in Cuba would often attempt escapes by swimming to Guantanamo. So water escapes are and have been a prime route of escape. We see the boat people. We see all of this. Well, now they're putting sensors everywhere. So going back to the microchip and implants in humans, it's important to understand how far the technology has advanced. So they talked about how it's a technology that is possible now for every newborn to be injected with a microchip, which can function to identify the person for the rest of his or her life. Now, I'm hearing some interference. Are you hearing interference?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
That does not say it's not coming.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't hear anything on my end.
I've had a lot of weird things happening with my phone, just talking to different guests and whatnot the last couple days.
Let me continue then. They talk about the microchipping, and the plans are secretly being discussed in the United States without any public airing of the privacy issues involved. And in Sweden, the Prime Minister gave permission in 1973 to implant prisoners, and data inspections on the ex-Director General in Sweden revealed that nursing home patients were implanted in the mid-1980s. The technology is revealed in the 1972 Swedish State Report. Goes on to say that implanted human beings can be followed anywhere, everywhere for the rest of their lives, and their brain functions can be remotely monitored by supercomputers and even altered through the changing of frequencies. This is what is happening now. This is mind control. This is what we are hearing about. Even the Center for Disease Control, that is a corporation run by Rothschild, even the Center of the Disease Control has a zombie link on their website about zombies. So it's important to understand how this criminal, corrupt corporate structure has strangled all of us with technologies that could have been used to serve mankind, but have been turned against us, and how they have silenced those that have created these technologies and literally targeted individuals. Now, the reason I really want everybody to stay with me on this for a minute is, again, as I've said, the idea of targeting individuals has expanded. What does this look like? Well, briefly, these are criminal crime networks, gang networks throughout the United States and globally that are stalking, harassing, and using handheld weapons to assault the biomedical implants that many of these targeted individuals have unwittingly. In fact, there was a congressman, James, let's see, suddenly forgot his name. Anyway, a congressman back in Missouri was talking about putting forth legislation and trying to convince his fellow congressmen to acknowledge the unwitting aspects of RFID chipping the American people without their knowledge or consent. And there's documents on my website. Many people have sought removals of these chips, and it's been very difficult. There have only been a few removals, not very many. Doctors have had a difficult time in recognizing this reality, and it's interesting that Siemens, who has developed much of the X-ray equipment and the MRI and other screening devices, has the contrast so that these biomedical implants are less able to be seen. So this is all a very highly orchestrated, horrific reality and assault upon every single one of us. So certainly the push to vaccinate needs to be questioned. Not only, of course, do we know that the vaccinations are triggered, the toxins are triggered by the frequencies. So they can induce various degrees of toxins that are in the vaccinations at different times to create plausible deniability. There's an excellent YouTube regarding vaccinations done by Andrew Molden, M-O-U-L-D-E-N. Andrew Molden, M-O-U-L-D-E-N. He died mysteriously at the young age of 49. He talks about the miniature strokes that children have and we have had throughout our life cycle as we're given various vaccinations. I would recommend everyone listen to his conference out of Canada, Dr. Andrew Molden, M-O-U-L-D-E-N. We also have an extremely important YouTube that we released just a week ago on vaccinations. I would recommend also that everyone take a look at that. It is called Vaccinations, Forced Vaccinations. You can go to Stop the Crime to our YouTube channel. You need to understand this word, parens patriae. It is a word that means the government is our parent. And on our website, under our vaccination link, we talk about parens patriae as we discovered it in the Center for Disease Control and Protection. It's one of their documents. This is all intentional. We are planned to be vaccinated. This is all part of the control mechanism and the poisoning of humanity. So make no mistake, our reality is not at all what we thought. But I want to move back to the targeted individuals.
Now, Deb, I just want to give you a heads up. We got just a minute or two left, so if you want to give out websites and whatnot, we need to kind of wrap it. Like I said, we could talk with you several hours a week and still run out of time.
Well, I appreciate that. And for all that are listening, again, I realize that much of what you've heard discussed can be overwhelming. It certainly was for all of us and our research team. But again, I think it's important now to form groups of people that are becoming aware. Understand you're not alone. We're all together in this as we discover what our reality really is. Go to stopthecrime.net. Spend some time there. Go to our YouTube channel especially, and take a listen to the YouTubes that we have up. We have one called Kill, K-I-L-L, Arc Storm, A-R-K, Storm. Understand the weaponized weather events that are being planned to force relocation of the American population throughout the country.
All right, Deborah.
So I want to thank you very much for the program today.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on. Rich, thanks for co-hosting with me. We'll have you on again soon. Jim's going to be gone next week as well, so maybe we can get you back to co-host next week. But thanks for joining us, guys. It's Liberty Brothers Radio Show. Hope you enjoy the show.
Thank you, Deborah.
You're most welcome.